Where are people with no houses going to shelter in place? This state, like every other state, is way behind the eight ball, way behind where we should be in taking care of the homeless crisis. So I just finished listening to Governor Whitmer in my state of Michigan, and she has declared shelter in place for everyone but those essential workers, grocery stores, fast food stores, of course, hospitals, just the things that you need for just your essential needs. And I'm very pleased. I like one of the um, examples she gave, which was of everybody, if we could freeze frame and everybody stood in place, freeze frame, everybody in place, 6 feet apart, then the crisis would be over. Okay, we wouldn't have any more. But since we can't do that, of course, she's doing a shelter in place, asking people to stay off the streets, stay home unless it's absolutely necessary. Now, one thing she didn't mention, a big oversight. It's always been an oversight, and even in a crisis, it's an oversight. Where are people with no houses going to shelter in place? Where are people going to shelter in place with no housing? So this state, like every other state, is way behind the eight ball, way behind where we should be in taking care of the homeless crisis. The one thing that she did mention about marginalized people was that people should perhaps go online and give to their local food banks. And let me tell you, giving to a food bank does not ensure that everyone eats, especially people who are experiencing the biggest crisis in the world, which is homelessness. Because everything impacts that. Everything. If a person can't have a home, they can't get necessary sleep. They can't prepare nutritious foods. Everything sort of affects the way a person is able to live or not live. And this is a health crisis, and we haven't thought of where people who are homeless are going to be. Now, I recently read in the news, and it's not a lot, it's not like urgent, but it was mentioned in the news that our shelter is trying to get people to rent out their spaces for emergency shelter. This is like old news. Why do you have to wait until a crisis to do this? They're doing the same thing in other states. I can't be exact about exactly what California is doing, but I know they're doing something very similar, trying to open up hotels. This should have been done as long as homelessness has been around. You don't wait to a crisis to all of a sudden try to put people in necessary spaces. Right now, I'm going to tell you where homelessness should be. It shouldn't even be a word, first of all. It shouldn't even exist. But there should be spaces for people who are temporarily without housing to go. State of the art, nice cafeterias, nice rooms, fitness spaces. Treat people like human beings. But the way we have it now, we don't have that emergency interception, that emergency intervention when people lose their housing. And most people end up going down just further and further and further until we look like what you see us on the streets. 5 days without a shower for a human being is a long time. We're high maintenance, and we can't keep up without the basics. So the basics should have been covered by now. But we're waiting to a crisis to address these things, and you can't do it. We can if the will of the people wanted to. If you had all of these people who are contributing to contributing their resources and talents to other problems in the world, if they did that towards the homeless crisis, again, that would begin to minimize. If people acted with urgency, as they're acting with urgency now because it's a crisis, they did that all along by recognizing that homelessness is a crisis. We're in crisis level, whether it's acknowledged in the media, whether politicians acknowledge it. That's a whole nother talk about politicians and their inability to address this crisis. But if we had the same response to the homeless crisis as we do to this crisis, there would be no timeline. It would be done almost immediately. We can do it. It's just that we're not. And I'm so disappointed. In my state, there's such a pitiful, anemic response to a big problem that's called homelessness. All right, I come on from time to time and comment about things in the homeless community that I think are important. This is beyond important. It's urgent. And I'm just getting my equipment set up so I can actually go ahead and record and put some comments out on things that are going on. So I hope you'll tune in and at least try to get some perspective on what's going on in the homeless community. My show is called Lit's Talk. I am lit. I'm so lit. That's what the young kids tell me to say. I'm so lit. And this channel is As the Third World in North America Terms. And I hope you subscribe and I hope you share my perspective on homelessness with others.